Mace Windu is dead. At least that's what Star Wars wants us to believe. After confronting Darth Sidious in Revenge of the Sith, Mace is betrayed by Anakin Skywalker, blasted through a window by Force lightning, and sent plummeting hundreds of feet above Coruscant. And that's the last we see of him. But considering everything we've seen characters in Star Wars survive, it's not completely crazy to ask, what if Mace Windu survived? And more importantly, what would he actually do? Because Mace Windu wasn't just another Jedi. He was one of the most powerful masters in the entire Jedi Order, and his story begins long before the fall of the Republic. Mace Windu was a Jedi Master and one of the most respected members of the Jedi Council. He was strict, he was intimidating, and he had very little patience for Jedi who ignored the rules. But underneath that harsh exterior was a Jedi who genuinely believed it was his responsibility to protect the Republic and the Order. The official Star Wars databank describes Mace as the Jedi Order's champion, and during the final years of the Republic, he increasingly sensed that something was deeply wrong within the galaxy. And Mace was right. The problem was that he didn't realize just how close the darkness was, because while Mace was fighting battles across the galaxy, Palpatine was manipulating the entire Republic from the inside. When the Clone Wars began, to a role that Jedi had never been meant to play, a general. He led clone troopers into battle, he fought separatist forces, he battled some of the most dangerous enemies in the galaxy, and he became one of the Republic's greatest warriors. At Geonosis, Mace personally defeated Jango Fett. During the Clone Wars, he fought alongside Jedi and clones across the galaxy, and despite everything happening around him, Mace slowly became more suspicious of Chancellor Palpatine. He just never realized that the Chancellor was actually Darth Sidious. According to the official Star Wars databank, Mace eventually became increasingly distrustful of Palpatine, but never discovered the Chancellor's true identity until the very end of the Clone Wars. And then everything fell apart. Anakin finally discovers the truth. Palpatine is Sidious, the Sith Lord the Jedi have been searching for. Mace and 3 other Jedi Masters confront the Chancellor, and almost immediately, Sidious shows them what he really is. He kills the other Jedi, but Mace survives. And somehow, Mace actually gains the upper hand. He defeats Sidious, he disarms him, and for a moment the Jedi have won. But then Anakin arrives. Anakin wants Palpatine alive. Mace refuses. And in the moment that changes the entire galaxy, Anakin cuts off Mace's arm. Sidious hits him with the Force lightning, and he goes flying out the window. The Jedi Order falls, Palpatine becomes the Emperor, and Mace Windu is presumed dead. But what if he survived? This is where things get interesting, because Mace wasn't simply thrown out of a window. He was blasted by Force lightning, lost an arm, and fell from an enormous height. That should absolutely have killed him, but Star Wars has never been particularly concerned with should. We've seen characters survive explosions, lightsaber wounds, being crushed, and falls that should have ended their stories. So if Mace somehow survived, what happens next? The first thing he would realize is horrifying. He would realize that the Jedi have lost. The Republic is gone, and Palpatine has won, and Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader. Mace would probably have one of the most complicated reactions imaginable, because Mace already distrusted Anakin. He warned the Council about him. He never fully believed Anakin was ready for the responsibility being placed on him, and now Anakin has helped destroy the Jedi Order. Mace would have every reason to want revenge, but that's where his story could become really interesting, because Mace would have to decide whether he was still fighting for the Jedi or simply fighting because he was angry. If Mace survived, I don't think he'd immediately go hunting for Vader. He'd disappear. He'd have to. The Empire would be searching for surviving Jedi, and Mace would be one of the most dangerous Jedi still alive. So he could spend years moving from planet to planet, helping people, but yet hiding his identity, and eventually training himself to live without the Jedi Order. And this could completely change Mace, because one of his biggest flaws was always his rigid belief in the Jedi Order. He believed in its rules, its traditions, its authority. But now, there is no council, no temple, no republic, and no Jedi Order. Just him and the Force. And that could force him to become something very different. Eventually, though, I think Mace would come for Vader. Not immediately, but eventually. Because Mace would know that Anakin is still in there somewhere. And imagine the confrontation. A scarred Mace Windu one arm, purple lightsaber, standing across from Darth Vader, the man who helped destroy everything that Mace has spent his life protecting. Vader ignites his red blade, and Mace ignites purple, and suddenly, the Jedi Order's greatest champion is fighting its greatest failure. But here's the important part. I don't think Mace would win. Not yet. Vader is too powerful and too angry, and Mace would still be recovering from his injuries. Instead, Mace would realize something. Vader isn't the real enemy, Palpatine is, and that changes everything. Because Mace doesn't need revenge, he needs to survive long enough to make sure the Jedi have a future. If Mace survived long enough, he could become something Star Wars has rarely explored. A Jedi Master who has lived through the destruction of the Jedi Order. Someone who remembers what the Jedi were and understands exactly why they failed. He could become a teacher, not of an army, not of a council, but of one student. Perhaps another Force-sensitive child discovered during the Imperial era. And Mace could teach them everything the old Jedi Order got right, while also teaching them everything it got wrong. That would be the ultimate evolution of Mace Windu. The man who once believed the Jedi Order needed to be protected would become the man who realized the Jedi needed to change. So, did Mace Windu survive? Officially, no. Mace Windu is considered dead after his confrontation with Sidious in Revenge of the Sith. The official Star Wars databank describes Sidious blasting Mace out of the window after Anakin severs his arm. But Star Wars has left just enough room for fans to imagine another possibility. And that's exactly why Mace continues to be such an interesting character. Because if he did survive, his greatest story wouldn't be about getting revenge on Palpatine. It wouldn't even be about defeating Vader. It would be about learning to live in a galaxy where everything he believed in was gone. Mace Windu spent his entire life defending the Jedi. Maybe his final purpose would be to reinvent them. And if he ever did return, I'd want to see the first thing he does after igniting that purple saber again. Because if there's one thing we know about Mace Windu, he's not going down quietly. If you like this video and want more like it, please like and subscribe to keep them coming. May the Force be with you.